Hello, hello. We are very lucky to be joined today by Tim Harford, author of The Undercover Economist and Messy, How to Be Creative and Resilient in a Tidy-Minded World. Tim's here at Warwick today to present one of the Economics 360 lectures run by the Economic Society. Thank you very much for agreeing to answer some questions, Tim.
It's my pleasure. It's good to be here.
Thank you. Firstly, for listeners who haven't read your best-selling book, why is there such a range of cappuccino prices across this campus?
That is a blast from the past. It's been more than 10 years since that book was written. Now, I describe all the different prices in Starbucks and Costa and so on, and ask how come you can pay so many different possible prices for what's fundamentally the same drink with just little frills on it. And one of the things that's going on here is what economists call price discrimination. So you're trying to charge low prices to people who demand a bargain, and you're trying to charge an elevated price, much more profit from people who don't seem to care that much. You know, they want to pay 50p for a bunch of marshmallows, they'll happily do that. So the more prices you give people, the more options you give them to identify that they're either price sensitive or not price sensitive.
Excellent. And what would you say your main motivation behind writing The Undercover Economist was?
Well, I remember very clearly I was working with a friend who had written a wonderful book about Einstein's great equation, E equals mc squared. And I remember saying to him, I was working in an oil company at the time, just a regular office job. I remember saying to him, I wish I could write a book about economics the way you've written this wonderful book about physics. And he looked at me and paused and raised an eyebrow, and after a while I got it. I realized actually you don't need anyone's permission. If I want to write that book, I've just got to get on and write the book, and that's what I did. And the idea was, like any good popular science book, to share my excitement about economics. I think it's a fascinating subject. I think it's all around us, so why not tell people about it? That's what I did.
Brilliant. As a physics student, that hits particularly close to home. Thank you. There's a significant level of general mistrust of experts in the media at the moment, especially following the Brexit campaign. What do you think should be done to combat this?
Well, I'm disturbed by the fact that various wings of various political parties don't seem to care if they want to smear scientists, if they want to attack statisticians, if they want to attack independent bodies. They're happy to do that if it serves their political purpose. And of course, some scientists have been used to this for a very long time. So scientists, for example, who've been working on climate change, scientists who've been working on genetic engineering, they've found themselves smeared by politicians and by campaigning groups because that suits the political aims of these people. So I think it's very bad news that this has spread to many other parts of the political system and to many other areas of expertise. I think as economists, we have to keep trying to communicate clearly, laying out our reasons, not resorting to ideology, but looking at the data and explaining things. And I think we also need to learn very hard lessons that have been learned by other scientists. And scientists, as I say, have been dealing with these problems for a long time. And it's not just about, just say it slowly and clearly and eventually people will get the picture. There's other stuff going on about communicating these complex ideas.
Okay, lovely. And what are your thoughts on universal basic income?
Well, I think it's a very interesting idea, and I have mixed feelings about it. The idea of a universal basic income is that everybody in a society should get a certain amount of money, enough to live on. Maybe it would be a similar amount to the state pension, or maybe it would be a similar amount to unemployment benefit. So not necessarily a huge amount of money, but it would support you. It would pay for housing, it would pay for food, it would pay for the basics. The appealing thing about this idea is it sweeps away all of the bureaucracy, all of the needs to sort of chase people up and do they really deserve unemployment benefit? Are they really looking for a job? Are they just scrounging? It does away with all of that. And instead you've got a situation where we're all citizens and so we all get this. And then we can go off and look for a job or look for some way of making money free of this bureaucracy. So that's the appealing thing. I think the thing that's more worrying is if you wanted to actually do this, you would either have to go for a very, very low level of income, and that would mean people in genuine need, for example, people suffering from disabilities, very elderly people trying to live in expensive parts of the country, like London, they wouldn't be able to afford to do those things anymore. Or alternatively, the bureaucracy comes right back and you haven't really solved the problem. Or alternatively, you're giving everyone really quite a substantial income, and then you've got to ask the question, well, who's going to pay for all of this? How is this going to be afforded? And you would need much higher taxes or much lower public services. And what I see in the debate is people on the left being somewhat in denial about the level of taxes that will be required, whereas people on the right saying, well, the libertarians saying this will be fantastic and making common cause with the left, but they have in mind a very, very different level of basic income. They mean really, really basic, whereas a lot of people on the left are thinking of something much more generous. And you appear to have this common cause between the left and the right, but actually I think they're looking at something rather different. So I wonder if it would work, but I'd be very interested to see it tried. And there are experiments in play in various parts of the world checking it out.
Final question, if I may. Why do some train tickets cost less as two singles than as a return?
So there are two possible explanations for this. One is that the train companies are just don't know their own business and have got no idea what's going on. The other is that it's confusion pricing, effectively, that the train companies are laying this incredible web of complexity that if you really need to find a cheap train ticket and you're willing to consult the right websites and get the search engines on it and plan 6 years in advance and do all of those things, you will find some incredibly clever way to travel cheaply. If, on the other hand, you show up at the railway station and you need to get somewhere in a hurry, you'll pay through the nose. And so they are using confusion as a way of making sure they get a lot of money from people who are willing to pay, who don't have the time to search, but at the same time they're able to offer a good deal to people who do have the time.
Excellent. Thank you very much for your time, Tim, and make sure to tune in to More or Less Fridays at 4:30 on BBC Radio 4.
Hello, I'm Tim Harford, the Undercover Economist, and you're listening to Raw 1251 AM.